Welcome everyone. In this Blender video tutorial, I'm going to show you how to use the screw modifier to make some really cool, interesting and more complex shapes, models rather, using a really simple technique and a great modifier called the screw modifier. All right, so let's get going here. I'm going to go ahead and split my window into two. You don't need to do this, but it'll basically help you see what the heck is going on. So to split my window into two, up here in the top right hand corner, I'm going to left mouse click and drag on these little diagonal lines. I'm going to drag to the left. Okay, so now I have two windows. I don't really need these toolbars here on the left hand side, so I can put my mouse pointer in the window and I can press the letter T, and just save a little bit of space. Okay, so this window on the right here, I'm going to keep this in perspective view so you can just kind of see what's going on overall. And then this window here on the left, I want to get into front view. So I'm going to press numpad 1 and get into front orthogonal view. And that way I'm looking at my object just from that angle. All right, so what you want to do with the screw modifier, you basically want to model half of an object. It's basically, you can make objects that are cylindrical, so like a table leg, a baseball bat, anything that is going to be symmetrical going all the way around. And so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to press X and I'm going to delete the cube. Now, something that's really important is that you generally want your 3D cursor at the center of the world, at the origin, before you start. And so the best way to do this is to press Shift C, and when you do that, your 3D cursor snaps to the center of the grid. So there we are, and you can see it over here. All right, so I'm going to now press Shift A, and I'm going to add a mesh, and it's going to be a plane. And I'm going to tab into edit mode, and what I essentially want to do is I want to get rid of all of these vertices. Actually, I want to keep one. So I want to merge all of these together into one. And the easiest way to do that is that you can use a tool called the Merge tool. So the Merge tool on a Mac is Option M. On a Windows computer, it's Alt M. So I'm going to press Option M, and it's going to say Merge, and it's going to say, where do you want them to merge? And I'm going to choose at center. And so now they've all been glued together and merged right here at the center here. So pay attention to the front view. So here's my first vertex here. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the Extrude tool. And so remember, this is the front view. So I'm going to press E, and I'm going to pull out a new vertex, and it's going to have an edge attached to it. So I'm going to go ahead and place it right about there. There we go. And I'll move this around just so you can see this a little bit better. All right, so I'm going to make this a So I'm going to make this a glass. All right, so I'm just going to continue doing extrude. So E, extrude, and the more extrusions you do, the curvier the edge that you can make. I'm going to make this a little bumpy at first, just so that way you can see how I can go back and edit it. Now, what you want to do is you want to respect the Z axis. So that's where the screw modifier is going to work off of. It's going to work off of the Z axis, and it's going to work off of the 3D cursor and the origin, which on my screen is this blue dot right here by my mouse pointer. Okay, and I'll show you how to fix that in another video. So I'm going to go ahead. This is the stem of the glass. This is where you would hold it. Zoom out so you can see better. And so again, you can always do more extrusions. And I will show you how to add in more vertices if you decide you need more. Okay, now let's say you get tired of pressing E and then moving and then E and then moving, and that's just kind of driving you a little nuts. So now I'm making the top curve of the glass. So I want it to be more rounded, so I did more extrusions. So if you don't like pressing E, what you can do is you can hold down the Control key. And if you hold down the Control key and you left mouse click, every point where you left mouse click, it will just do it. Okay, it is a little faster, but I find it to be actually a little less accurate. Okay, so where do I want this to end up? Well, if you think about it, when this spins around, I want it to not have a hole in the middle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to purposefully leave this like this. Notice that this vertex here is not touching the blue z-axis, okay? But notice that this bottom one is. And I'm going to show you what that's going to create. It's going to create a problem. It's going to create a hole going right down the middle of my glass. And I'm creating some of these problems so that you can see how to fix them. Okay, so here is my profile. Here's basically the shape that I want to make. Okay, now let's say you look at this and you think, geez, I really want to move this around and make it smoother. No problem. Just right mouse click and select your vertices and just G to grab them and move them and just get them where you want. Now let's say you decide, I wish I had an extra vertex over here to make it just a little smoother. So what you can do is you can simply shift right click and select two verts, then press W and then choose Subdivide, this very first command here. And when you do that, it will automatically put a new vertex in between the two that you just had. And now you've got a brand new vertex in there. And there you go. You can't just select a vertex and press E and extrude because that'll create this weirdness. So you really have to select two, then do a subdivide, and you're good to go. Okay, so now if I select all, I'm going to press F to make a face, and so there's what the face looks like. Keep in mind there's a problem here because this is not far enough over. So there it is there. So now I want to apply the screw modifier and see what I get. So I'm going to come over here on the right hand side and click on the little wrench icon. That's the modifiers. Click on Add Modifier and go down here in the second column and choose the screw modifier. And when I do that, you'll see that it does a pretty nice job. But you'll notice that there is a hole in the middle of my wine glass, which doesn't really make any sense. So if you notice that right away, come over here to your modifier, and over here on the far right hand side, you'll see a little X. You can click on that and that will delete it. So now you go back to your profile. So this is where you can make those changes. I'm going to select this single vertex and just grab it and move it over. It really needs to be right on this Z-axis right here. Now if you're like me and you want to be as precise as possible, I'll show you what you can do. You can select that vertex and you can eyeball it, most of you, but if you want to make it precise, you can press the letter N and you can scroll all the way up to the top until you see right here where it says transform vertex, and you've got the three axes here, X, Y, and Z. So you just have to figure out which axis you want. So if I go to the X-axis and I click here and I type in 0 on the X-axis, you'll see that it will jump over. It'll be perfectly at the 0 on the X-axis. Okay, so that's how you can make sure that your vertex is perfectly placed. Okay, I'm going to press N again to hide that. And I'm just looking at, again, the profile of my glass, and that's good for now. Go back to Add Modifier, Screw Modifier, and now you'll see that there's no gap because that was closed up. So there it is there. So you can play around with this. I'll show you a couple of the handier controls. You can play around with the angle. So right now it's at 360 degrees. You can click and drag, and you can make it less than 360 degrees. So you can make it be a half glass or a quarter of a glass. You can do some interesting mathematical things like that. I'll just type back in 360, hit return. You'll see these segments here. These are actually called steps. There's 16. So this is kind of a low poly one. If I change this from 16, if I go down to 3 or 4, let's do 4, you'll see I get that kind of a glass, which is kind of cool. Or I can go up to a lot more, and there we go. And now I have a much more detailed one. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go to, let's do 24. Okay, so there we are. And I'm going to go ahead and this is coming at 10 minutes now. So again, just follow this tutorial. Make sure, the best advice I can give you is to make sure that your 3D cursor is at the origin. So make sure that you snap it at the beginning. And make sure that you merge all your points so that they start at 0, 0, 0. That can really take care of a whole lot of problems. In the second video, which will get a little bit more advanced and model something that's more advanced, I will deal with how you would fix problems if you are encountering some of the more common problems. Okay, that's it for this one. I will see you in the next video.